The first scream echoed through the empty streets just after sunrise. By noon, Main Street was a war zone. I always thought I would die of old age in this town. I never imagined I would be fighting to keep it alive. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. If you're enjoying it so far, it really helps the channel grow. You never forget the first time you see someone you know, someone you trust, turn into something else. Something hungry. I am Sheriff Linda Harper, and this is how I tried to save my town in the first 12 hours of the outbreak. It started with a call from dispatch. Static crackled through the radio, and then came the voice of Deputy Mark. He sounded out of breath, panicked. "Sheriff, you need to get down to the old mill. Something's wrong. Real wrong." I was halfway through my morning coffee, the sun barely up, when I grabbed my hat and keys. The air outside was thick with the smell of dew and distant wood smoke. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how normal. That was the last normal moment I would have. The drive to the mill was only 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself it was just another small-town emergency. Maybe a fight, maybe a wild animal. I was wrong. When I pulled up, I saw Mark standing in the gravel, waving his arms. His uniform was stained with something dark. At his feet, a man was sprawled out, twitching. I recognized him, old Joe, the mill's night watchman. His eyes were wide, glassy, and his mouth worked open and shut like a fish out of water. "Linda, he bit me," Mark gasped, holding up his arm. Blood dripped from a ragged wound. He just attacked me. I knelt beside Joe, trying to check his pulse. His skin was cold, clammy. I was about to call for an ambulance when Joe's hand shot up, grabbing my wrist with impossible strength. His nails dug into my skin. I tried to pull away, but he would not let go. "Joe, let go!" I shouted. His mouth opened wider and a guttural moan escaped. That was not Joe's voice. That was something else. Mark stepped forward, trying to help, but Joe lunged at him, teeth snapping. I drew my sidearm, hands shaking, and fired a warning shot into the air. Joe did not even flinch. I had no choice. I aimed at his chest and pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the trees. Joe slumped back, but his eyes kept moving, rolling in their sockets. He was still alive. Or something close to it. Mark was pale, sweating. "What the hell is happening, Linda?" I did not have an answer. I just knew we had to get out of there. We drove back to the station in silence. Mark kept looking at his arm, the blood soaking through his sleeve. I tried to radio for help, but all I got was static. The phone lines were dead, too. By the time we reached Main Street, the world had changed. People were running, screaming. Cars crashed into storefronts. I saw Mrs. Callahan, the baker, pounding on the window of her shop, her face twisted in terror. Something was inside with her, something that used to be her husband. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out, shouting for people to get inside, to lock their doors. But panic spreads faster than any warning. Some listened. Most did not. Mark was getting worse. He slumped against the squad car, shivering. I tried to keep him talking, but his eyes kept drifting shut. "Linda, I do not feel so good," he whispered. I pressed my hand to his forehead. He was burning up. I wanted to take him to the clinic, but I could see through the glass doors that it was already overrun. People were pounding on the windows, blood smeared across the glass. I had to make a choice. Stay and help Mark, or try to save as many as I could. I chose the town. I left Mark in the back of the squad car, locking the doors. I told myself it was for his own safety. I told myself I would come back for him. I ran down Main Street, shouting for anyone who could hear me. "If you can walk, get to the diner. Barricade the doors, move." A few people followed, Mrs. Callahan limping and sobbing. Tommy, the high school quarterback, carrying his little sister. Old Mr. Grady clutching a shotgun. We made it to the diner just as the first of the infected rounded the corner. Their eyes were empty, their mouths stained red. They moved in jerky, unnatural bursts like puppets with broken strings. Inside the diner was chaos. People huddled under tables, crying. The smell of burnt coffee and fear filled the air. I slammed the door shut and dragged a booth in front of it. "Everyone, listen to me," I shouted. "We need to stay calm. We need to work together. If you have a weapon, get it ready. If you do not, find something heavy. We are not letting them in." Someone started praying. Someone else was sobbing. I tried to keep my voice steady, but inside I was shaking. I looked out the window. The infected were gathering, pressing their faces to the glass. Their hands smeared bloody prints across the surface. I counted heads. 12 of us. 12 against? I did not know how many. I tried to radio for help again. Nothing but static. I thought about Mark alone in the squad car. I thought about my own family, miles away on the other side of the county. I wondered if they were safe. The infected started pounding on the doors, their fists thudding like war drums. I gripped my sidearm and took a deep breath. This was my town. I was not going to let it fall. Not without a fight. But as the glass began to crack, I realized this was only the beginning. The first window shattered, and a cold wind swept through the diner, carrying with it the stench of death. I raised my gun, heart pounding as the first of the infected crawled through the broken glass. What would you do if you were in my shoes? You never really know what you are capable of until you are cornered, with nowhere left to run. That was the moment I realized. Sometimes survival means becoming someone you do not recognize. The glass rained down in jagged shards, scattering across the black and white tile floor. The first infected, a teenage boy I recognized from the high school football team, dragged himself through the window, his arms streaked with blood, his eyes wild and empty. I shouted, "Back!" "Get behind the counter." My voice was hoarse, but it cut through the panic. Tommy, still clutching his little sister, ducked behind the counter with Mrs. Callahan and a few others. Old Mr. Grady leveled his shotgun at the window, hands trembling. The infected boy lunged at me, mouth open, teeth snapping. I fired once, twice. The first shot missed, shattering a coffee pot. The second hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He barely seemed to notice. He kept coming. I aimed higher. The third shot caught him in the head. He dropped instantly like a puppet with its strings cut. For a moment, there was silence. Then the pounding started again. More hands, more faces pressed against the glass. The infected were relentless, driven by some hunger I could not understand. I turned to the others. "We need to block the windows. Tables, chairs, anything you can find. Move." Everyone scrambled, dragging booths and stools, stacking them against the broken window. The infected outside howled, their voices rising in a chorus of agony and rage. I caught my breath, heart hammering. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely reload my pistol. Mrs. Callahan was sobbing, her hands pressed to her mouth. "Linda, what is happening?" "Why are they doing this?" I did not have an answer. I just shook my head. "We need to stay calm. We need to stay together." Tommy's little sister, Sarah, clung to his arm, her eyes wide with terror. "Are they going to get in?" I knelt beside her, forcing a smile I did not feel. "Not if I can help it. You are safe here, I promise," but even as I said it, I was not sure I believed it. The pounding grew louder. The infected were everywhere now, surrounding the diner, their faces twisted in hunger and pain. I could see more of them staggering down Main Street. Neighbors, friends, people I had known my whole life. I tried the radio again. "This is Sheriff Linda Harper calling anyone. We are trapped in the diner on Main. We need help. Please, if anyone can hear me." Nothing but static. Mr. Grady's voice was rough. "We cannot stay here forever." "They will get in sooner or later." He was right. The barricade would not hold forever. I needed a plan. I scanned the diner, looking for anything that could help. There was a back door leading to the alley. If we could make it to the hardware store across the street, we might find more weapons. Maybe even a working radio. But the alley was narrow, and I could see infected stumbling through the trash cans. Drawn by the noise, I turned to the group. "Listen to me. We are going to have to move. When I say go, we head out the back. Stay together. Do not stop for anything. Understand?" They nodded, fear in their eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had never felt so responsible, so exposed. Every decision I made could mean life or death for these people. I peeked through the blinds. The infected were still pounding on the front, but the alley looked clear, at least for now. "Okay," I whispered. "Now." We moved fast, pushing through the kitchen and out the back door. The alley was cold and damp, the air thick with the smell of garbage and something else, something rotten. We crept along the wall, trying to stay quiet. I could hear the infected on the other side of the dumpster, their moans echoing off the brick. Tommy led the way, holding Sarah's hand. Mrs. Callahan followed, limping badly. Mr. Grady brought up the rear, shotgun at the ready. We were halfway to the street when a figure stumbled out from behind a pile of crates. It was Deputy Mark, His uniform was torn, his face pale and slick with sweat. He looked at me, eyes pleading. "Linda, help me." I rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "Mark, you should not be here. You need to get inside." He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I am sorry, Linda. I could not stop it." He collapsed in my arms, convulsing. I saw the bite on his arm, the skin around it black and swollen. The others backed away, fear in their eyes. I held Mark as he shook, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Linda, do not let me become one of them, please." My heart broke. I wanted to promise him everything would be okay, but I could not lie to him. Not now. I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I had known for years. He was still there, somewhere deep inside. "I'm sorry, Mark," I whispered. He nodded, tears mixing with blood on his cheek. "Thank you." I raised my pistol, hands trembling. For a moment, the world went silent. Then I pulled the trigger. Mark slumped in my arms, finally at peace. I stood up, wiping my eyes. The others stared at me, silent. "We need to keep moving," I said, my voice hollow. We reached the street, ducking behind parked cars. The hardware store was just across the road, its windows dark. I signaled to the group, on my count. 1, 2, 3. We sprinted across the street, dodging debris and bodies. The infected saw us, their heads snapping up, and they started to run. We reached the door, and I fumbled with the keys, hands slick with sweat. The infected were closing in, their footsteps pounding on the pavement. I got the door open, shoving everyone inside. Mr. Grady fired his shotgun, dropping one of the infected. The blast echoed down the street. I slammed the door shut, locking it behind us. Inside, the store was dark and silent. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. I leaned against the door, catching my breath. We had made it. For now. But as I looked around, I realized we were not alone. A figure stepped out from behind the shelves, holding a crowbar. His eyes were wild, desperate. "Stay back," he shouted. "This is my store. You cannot have it." I raised my hands, trying to calm him. "We are not here to hurt you. We just need shelter." He shook his head, backing away. "No, you will bring them here." "You will get us all killed." The others huddled behind me, fear and exhaustion etched on their faces. I took a step forward, trying to reason with him. "Please, we are all just trying to survive." He looked at me, eyes darting between us and the door. Outside, the infected were gathering, their moans growing louder. Inside, the tension was thick enough to choke on. The man's grip tightened on the crowbar. "If you try anything, I will not hesitate." Behind us, the infected began to pound on the door, the glass rattling in its frame. Trapped between the living and the dead, I realized. Sometimes, the most dangerous monsters are the ones who are still breathing. What would you do if you had to choose who to trust? When the world falls apart, you find out who you really are. Sometimes you are the hero. Sometimes you are just another survivor, making impossible choices. The pounding on the glass grew louder, echoing through the aisles of the hardware store. The man with the crowbar, his name was Carl, I would learn later, stood between us in the back room, his eyes wild with fear. "Get away from the door," he hissed. "You are going to get us all killed." I kept my hands up, trying to keep my voice steady. "Carl, listen to me. We are not your enemy. We just need a place to catch our breath, please." He shook his head, sweat dripping down his face. "You do not understand. I have seen what they do. I have seen what people do when they are scared. I am not letting anyone take this place from me." Behind me, Mrs. Callahan whimpered, clutching her arm. Tommy and Sarah huddled together, eyes wide. Mr. Grady kept his shotgun pointed at the floor, but his knuckles were white. The infected outside were relentless. Their fists and bodies slammed against the glass, making the whole storefront shudder. I could see cracks spiderwebbing across the window. It would not hold much longer. I took a slow step forward. "Carl, if we do not work together, none of us are getting out of here. We need to reinforce the doors. We need tools, nails, anything you have." He hesitated, eyes darting from me to the others. For a moment I saw the fear in him, the same fear I felt in my own chest. Finally, he nodded. "Fine, but if anyone tries anything, no one will," I promised. We moved fast. Carl handed out hammers and nails, and we dragged shelves and toolboxes in front of the windows. The infected kept coming, their faces pressed against the glass, their hands clawing at the cracks. Every bang made my heart jump. Every second felt like an hour. We worked in silence, the only sounds the hammering of nails and the moans from outside. I tried not to look at the faces in the crowd. I tried not to recognize them. When we finished, I slumped against the counter, exhausted. My hands were raw, my arms shaking. Mrs. Callahan sat on the floor, her breathing shallow. I knelt beside her, checking her arm. The bite was deep, the skin around it turning gray. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Linda, I do not want to become one of them." I squeezed her hand. "We will figure something out." I promised, but I knew it was a lie. I had seen what happened to Mark. I had seen what happened to everyone who got bitten. Tommy sat with Sarah, whispering to her, trying to keep her calm. Mr. Grady kept watch at the window, shotgun ready. Carl paced the aisles, muttering to himself. I could see the strain in his face, the way his hands shook. I tried the radio again. Still nothing but static. I looked at the others, these people I had sworn to protect. I felt the weight of every decision, every mistake. The night dragged on. The infected never stopped. They pounded and clawed, their hunger never fading. At some point, Mrs. Callahan's breathing grew ragged. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Please, Linda, do not let me turn." I nodded, tears burning in my eyes. I did what I had to do. I held her hand until the end. Afterward, I wrapped her in a tarp from the shelves, whispering a prayer. The others watched in silence, the horror of it all settling over us like a shroud. We were running out of time. The barricade would not last forever. Supplies were low. The infected were everywhere. I gathered everyone together. We cannot stay here. When the sun comes up, we make a run for the trucks out back. We head for the hills. There is an old ranger station up there. If we can make it, we might have a chance. Carl shook his head. "You are crazy. We will never make it." I looked him in the eye. "If we stay here, we die. If we run, we have a chance. I am not giving up on this town." "Not yet." Tommy nodded, determination in his eyes. "I will carry Sarah. We can do this." Mr. Grady checked his shotgun. "I have 2 shells left. Make them count." We waited in silence, listening to the infected outside. The sky began to lighten, a pale gray creeping over the rooftops. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the badge on my chest. I thought about my family, about Mark, about everyone we had lost. I thought about what it meant to lead, to sacrifice, to hope. The first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the street in gold. I stood up, my voice steady. "It is time. Stay close. Do not stop. No matter what happens, keep moving." We moved to the back door, weapons ready. I could hear the infected in the alley, their moans echoing off the walls. I looked at the others, my heart pounding. On my count. 1, 2, 3. We burst through the door into the cold morning air. The infected turned, their heads snapping toward us. We ran. Tommy carried Sarah. Carl swung his crowbar. Mr. Grady fired his last 2 shells. I led the way, my pistol barking in my hand. The world was chaos, screams, gunshots, the roar of engines as we reached the trucks. I threw open the door, shoving everyone inside. Carl jumped behind the wheel, hands shaking. "Go," I shouted. The engine roared to life and we tore down the alley. The infected chasing us, their hands clawing at the metal. We sped through the empty streets, past burning cars and shattered windows. The town I had sworn to protect was gone, swallowed by the dead, but we were alive. For now. As we reached the edge of town, I looked back one last time. Smoke rose over the rooftops. The sun was rising, painting everything in gold and blood. I did not know what waited for us in the hills. I did not know if we would survive the day, but I knew one thing: I would keep fighting. For my town, for my people, for hope. Because sometimes leadership means sacrifice, and sometimes it means letting go. As the truck rumbled up the mountain road, I looked at the faces around me. Tired, scared, but alive. The radio crackled just for a moment with a voice I did not recognize. "If anyone is out there, you are not alone." I gripped the wheel, hope flickering in my chest. The first 12 hours were over, but the real fight was just beginning. What would you do if you were the last hope for your town?